Okay, that's us.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dean Marsh, ICT technician at Barkid Housing Association based in Wales. We have around 5,000 properties covering much of Wales and into England as well now. We merged back in November with Thai Ceredigion. So yeah, a lot's changing, a lot more properties on board. Okay, so we began our journey into IoT back in 2018. For years, the guys have been talking about, what if we could capture data profiles, information from our properties out there? And at the time, the options were pretty limited. We need to either use SIM cards, rely on the tenant's internet Wi-Fi connection, which is a no-go, or kit the properties out with Ethernet. So at the time, the technology it didn't really enable us to do it. So skip along a few years, I was out in Amsterdam, and I saw LoRaWAN being used out there, which is long-range wide area network, where you don't need SIMs, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, designed for small little packets of data. So come back, purchased a gateway, didn't really kind of know what we're doing at the time, placed that on the office building in Newtown. Looking at all the specs, it should have covered about 10 miles, pretty much outperformed that. So we put the gateway on the building, purchased a bulk of temperature humidity sensors, and started installing those into the properties in Newtown, which we cover. Straight away, we started seeing patterns and trends in the data. You sort of build up a baseline from temperature humidity. We're sampling every sort of 30 minutes, so you're building these graphs up, so we could see sort of normal kind of waves with people sort of heating the properties efficiently. And then I think the real sort of eye-opener for us was in the winter when the temperatures started to drop here. I think at the time it was the beast from the east sort of winter we had here. A number of properties, they started dropping below 10 degrees Celsius, heading towards zero. So we're like, well, wow, we'd never realized this without IoT getting this data back. So with those properties, which were triggering alerts, we got the housing officers to go out and see what was going on. And in one instance, there was an elderly gentleman. He had no money. He couldn't afford to heat the property, and he was pretty much sort of getting hypothermic at that point, as the temperatures were kind of going below zero in his property for about 7 days. So from that, one of the housing officers, they managed to sort him out heating allowance. He wasn't aware of what he could kind of get to heat his property. And from that, the result, we saw that once the heating was on, all the temperatures rose into the kind of normal band. And I think that was the real kind of key eye-opener for us at that point, where we potentially saved a person's life using IoT. So from there, we've experimented with a lot of different sensors and a lot of data. I think that the key ones to use if you're going to be experimenting, or what I recommend, IoT, temperature, humidity, those are the key indicators, heartbeat of what's going on in your property. If you sample it every 30 minutes, that gives you a great profile data set of what's going on in the property. LoRaWAN makes it really easy to do that, to roll out and upscale and downscale as needed. 2 well-positioned gateways will easily cover a town of up to about 1,000 sensors, possibly more. So it makes it really easy if you need to cover estates. The technology works really well. We see very little packet loss. We tried a number of different gateways. The one to go for is the Lorix one. Really easy to configure, solid software. Nice little compact unit, has the antenna, everything's in the box, and they're relatively easy to configure as well. So yeah, temperature, humidity, those are the key ones to deploy. We've also experimented with our new passive homes, monitoring COT and VOC. Carbon dioxide is quite important with the passive homes when using heat recovery systems, because they're completely sealed. And we've seen, I think, for the tenants going into these new passive homes, it's quite a switch from your conventional sort of gas boiler thermostat to where the systems can completely controlling the air handling. And we've seen in a number of properties where we've been logging the CO2, where the tenants alter the settings or turn the unit off, and that the CO2 starts spiking, and we can get a heads up straight away of what's going on in that property. Send a housing officer out there, just educate them on the system, Quite a few times we give them access to their own data, and they can kind of see what's going on, and they get a kind of picture then of the ideal kind of heating and ventilation needed, and how they're changing the environment in the home affects everything, which is really good. For the passive homes, we use the MCF88 sensors. It's a multi-sensor where you've got temperature, humidity, CO2, VOC, air pressure, and I believe lux as well. We found it pretty useful actually with the air pressure. With the passive home, we think we can see when the filter's getting clogged in the unit. The trend of pressure seems to change, so that's really insightful. So we can possibly predict when that needs to be changed. So yeah, the technologies have advanced really quickly out there. I think for me, probably one of the most exciting pieces of hardware I've seen this year is the Nextlex Origin smoke detector, which uses LoRaWAN. Which we didn't realize, but it's got air handling or air monitoring algorithms inside, where it'll detect if there's mold, high humidity, dust mites, and a few other different variables. I'm still learning and reading the data coming in, but this is really exciting. The only showstopper for this at the moment, it doesn't support interlink function, but I believe the guys are working on that for Q4. So that's a 10-year sealed lithium, reporting complete diagnostics back every 6 hours, battery life, faults, air quality in the room. I get mold indicators, high humidity, low humidity, high temperature, low, and they're fully configurable as well. You can change all the parameters with an NFC app or send information back to it to change it. But yeah, it's been really, really exciting for us what we can achieve with IoT, and it's really easy to implement. We're using the Things Network, Community Edition. Bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but once you get stuck in and understand the keys, very much similar to sort of Wi-Fi keys, I think once you get that first sensor registered on the Things Network and sending data back, you start to learn pretty quickly of how it all works. The Things Network, it allows you to integrate to different platforms. We're using Tego IO as a stopgap at the moment. We're about to move over to MIS from Capita, but the long-term aim will be having the sensors directly integrated into the housing system. So from there, we can trigger alerts. For example, say if the property temperature is below 15 degrees over 2 weeks, it would automatically trigger a visit from a housing officer to go out. I think that's another key as well, keeping it simple for the staff. If you give them raw data out there, they just kind of lose interest. It's no good. The data's got to fit different profiles, like abandoned property, high condensation, potential mold, etc. like that. That's what the guys need, an alert triggering through to tell them the possible sort of condition detected in that property by the sensor. There's no point giving them raw data, just doesn't work at all. Yeah, we can detect abandoned properties. That's quite easy to do. More so in the winter with the temperature humidity data. It tends to flatline compared to others if it's been abandoned. You get this natural kind of cycle we notice normally. We've detected leaks as well, where the humidity kind of spikes really quickly and sustains. That's a general kind of indicator for a leak, central heating or mains water. Condensation, that's probably one of the biggest winners. It's mainly down to sort of lifestyle in the property, not opening windows. You can detect that really easy from the data. You get this high humidity. You'll see the trend when there's sort of drying laundry in the house, keeping the windows closed, not changing the air. And then you can set your triggers to kind of pick up on that and send an alert through that it's a possible, one to get ahead of and check and sort of interact with the tenant and give them the heads up what they can sort of change and prevent that. So yeah, we're integrating the Things Network into Tego. At the moment, it's a stopgap, just dumping the data in there, basic alerts, graphs. We give the staff, we push the dashboards out onto their phones through the app. They can keep a heads up of what's going on out there. We've also started using it for ASB as well. Really good results with ASB, where we're monitoring sound levels using LoRaWAN sensors. Those are the LSys ERS sound. they've proved really useful in a couple of court cases. Apparently, the evidence and the data from that is really worked. So possible ASB, we'll put the sound sensor in, set the thresholds for peak and average sound. We can get that data streaming back onto an app, recorded, downloaded into Excel, and use that, which is excellent. So yeah, ASB, that's been a big one for this year, using the technology. We've also been delving into a lot of our manual processes out there. For example, emergency lighting. We spend approximately £40,000 a year manually testing emergency lighting, and we were sort of, what could we automate that using the technology instead of a guy traveling in a van flicking a switch? Some of the ones fortnightly tests, they're over £100, about 150. It's in the tenants pay for it. It's in the service charge. So we work with a company in Ireland called Safe Facility, integrating LoRaWAN into the emergency lights. They already had an existing product which worked with a SIM card, which is great. But for us, if we upscale to 5,000 plus properties, SIM card's going to be £1 to £2 a month. It's soon going to add up. So LoRaWAN, where we don't need SIMs, ideal. So we work with them. We had 2 units sent over early last year. I put one in my house, the stairwell. It's really good when there's a power cut. And there's one in the office, and they were solid. So we could test the emergency light remotely. The dashboard sends the downlink function test every 2 weeks, sends all the diagnostics reports back, and then you can do a full duration, 3 hours, does the report, sends it all back, so you can completely manage all your emergency lighting using LoRaWAN, taking away that manual testing, which is a huge cost saving. We're about to roll that out in Aberystwyth to a big block out there. And of course, the tenants, it comes out that the service charge can reduce, which is a winner. We can bring that down. We're looking at other things. Anti-skull valves, that's another one. We have to manually test. We've got a bit of a proof of concept in the building at the moment. We believe we can, so every time the tap's pressed, we can test the tap multiple times a day, get the information back, make sure the anti-skull valve's within tolerance. And that's another sort of manual testing process we can automate and hopefully long-term feed the data back into the hydrogen management system. So all the certifications all done automatically, and huge cost saving and safety as well there. I think that the next step, once the smoke alarm technology, especially this, I think this is probably going to be the one, the next like Origin plus LoRaWAN. Once the interlinks established in there, this would be just kind of like a multi-sensor you could put into your property, because it's doing the air monitoring and the smoke alarm diagnostics as well. They think that hopefully for their second generation product, you'd be able to do remote testing as well, where there's a microphone embedded inside. So you could send the downlinks from the hydrogen management software, smoke alarm receives it, tests audio back, creates its own report, sends it back into the housing management system. So it completely takes away the admin side as well. It's a huge savings. I think we spend about £120,000 a year manually testing smoke alarms. So I'm going to make it my aim to fully automate that process. That's the plan. So yeah. What else is there? Leak detection as well. We've experimented with simple sensor. I paid £16 for this. It's got around a 4 to 5 year battery life. We've experimenting with the older properties with the header tanks. You can just kind of clip the probe to the top of the tank when it reaches that threshold. Sends an alert through that there's a possible issue with the ball cock in there. Or what else we've done with this? We've drilled 2 little holes into the overflow pipe, mounted that in, sealed it. So if there's water coming down, we can get a heads up, a message back that there's a possible, leak issue or tank. Very inexpensive, and you could possibly prevent thousands of pounds worth of damage with something as simple as that.
Sorry, Dean, just a couple of minute warning there. Just
sure.
There's loads of questions as well. So
okay, excellent. That's good. That's what we want. Sure, brilliant. So I'm just really, I mean, we found it so easy to bring this in house and do it ourselves, and it's just kind of limited to your imagination, really, what you can do with it. But when you're rolling this out, though, you need to get value back from it. Temperature, humidity is the key one. A simple sensor. I think Elsys ERS, we paid around £35–40 for those. It's coming down all the time if you buy them in bulk. The Things network, there's a lot of coverage already out there. We've seen quite a few other manufacturers being threatened by this technology, and they'll kind of try to downplay LoRaWAN. I wouldn't listen to that. 3 years we've been using it. The performance is solid. It works really well. If there's no coverage in your area, purchase your own gateway, mount it in a good location on your building, get some coverage. It's really easy enough to do. Things network, brilliant. I'm so impressed what they've put together with that. We're in quite a lucky position in Wales at the moment. The Welsh government, they're going to be funding a huge rollout of gateways right across Wales, I believe over 400. So we're pretty much going to have complete coverage all over Wales, which is brilliant for businesses, housing associations. You can just roll out your own sensors, register them on the Things Network, Community Edition, and then you can just get the data straight back. We're already using gateways, Ceredigion County Council installed. So we can just kind of roam, put the sensors in and use that coverage, which is brilliant. We use that a lot for the ASB when there's a problem. Put the sensor in, and hopefully there's a gateway in range there. 9 times out of 10 there is at the moment, and we can just get that data back. So yeah, it's really, really exciting, and it's developing so quickly, the technology out there. You can make huge savings and pass them on to the tenants.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dean. And like Chris said, there's already been